My name is Elena Martinez, and I was 31 years old when I discovered that the man sleeping beside me every night had been systematically erasing me from my own life. The revelation didn't come with dramatic music or a shocking confrontation. It came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was folding his laundry, and I found a receipt that didn't belong in our world. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it really started. Let me take you back to the night I realized my marriage was a performance, and I was the only one who didn't know I was acting. It was a humid evening in late August, and we were sitting in the private dining room of an upscale restaurant called the Azure Room. The air conditioning was fighting a losing battle against the heat radiating from too many bodies packed into too small a space. My husband, Marcus Brennan, had organized this dinner to celebrate his promotion to senior vice president at Caldwell Financial Group. 50 people were crammed around a U-shaped table, champagne glasses clinking, laughter echoing off the exposed brick walls. I was wearing a cream-colored dress that Marcus had picked out for me that morning. He said it made me look elegant, but not attention-seeking. I didn't tell him that I felt like a ghost in it, pale and invisible against the vibrant colors everyone else was wearing. Marcus stood at the head of the table, giving a speech about hard work and dedication. He was good at speeches. He had that kind of voice that made people lean in, that made them believe whatever he was saying was important. He thanked his team, his mentors, his parents who were beaming at him from their seats near the center. He did not thank me. I wasn't expecting him to. By that point, 3 years into our marriage, I had learned that my role was to be present but not prominent, to smile but not speak unless spoken to support but never to shine. Then his sister, Victoria, decided it was time to remind me of my place. Victoria was 27, worked in marketing for a tech startup, and had the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. She was sitting directly across from me, her wine glass already empty, her cheeks flushed with alcohol and self-righteousness. "Elena," she called out, loud enough that conversations around us began to quiet. "That's such a lovely dress. It must be nice to have so much time to shop while the rest of us are working." The words were wrapped in a smile, delivered with a laugh, but the knife was sharp underneath. I set down my water glass. I kept my expression neutral. Actually, Marcus picked it out. I was busy with other things. "Oh, right," Victoria said, her eyes glittering with malice. "Your busy schedule. What is it you do all day exactly? I mean, you don't have kids yet. You don't have a job. Do you just sit at home watching television and waiting for Marcus to come home and pay the bills?" The table had gone completely silent now. Everyone was watching. I could feel their eyes on me. Some curious, some pitying, some gleeful at the prospect of drama. I looked at Marcus. I waited for him to step in. I waited for him to tell his sister that I had been a senior project coordinator at Langston Architecture before we got married, that I had left my career because we had agreed I would focus on starting a family, that I managed our entire household so he could focus on his career. Marcus took a sip of his scotch. He smiled at Victoria. He said nothing. "I manage the house," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. "I handle the finances, the scheduling, the maintenance. I make sure everything runs smoothly so Marcus can focus on work." Victoria laughed, a sharp, barking sound. "Oh, you mean you spend his money and tell him when the gardener is coming? That sounds exhausting." Someone at the table chuckled. It was Marcus's best friend, Colin, a man who had never said more than 3 words to me in the entire time I'd known him. "Come on, Vic," Marcus said. But he was smiling. He was smiling like this was all a harmless joke. "Elena does her part. Someone has to make sure I have clean shirts." More laughter. It rippled around the table like a virus. My mother-in-law, Patricia, leaned forward. She had the same sharp features as Victoria, the same cutting voice disguised as concern. Darling, I think what Victoria's trying to say, in her own way, is that perhaps it's time for you to think about contributing more. Marcus has been carrying the financial burden alone, and with his new position, the pressure's only going to increase. Maybe it's time to go back to work, or at least volunteer somewhere. Idle hands and all that. Idle hands. As if the last 3 years of my life had been spent lounging by a pool. I had given up my career because Marcus said we couldn't both be traveling for work when we had children. Except we didn't have children yet, because every time I brought it up, Marcus said the timing wasn't right. And now apparently I was being punished for following the plan he had laid out for me. I didn't realize my contributions were under review. I said, my voice colder now. Perhaps we should have had this conversation privately, Marcus, instead of at your celebration dinner in front of 50 people. Marcus's smile tightened. His eyes narrowed slightly. A warning. Let's not make this into a big deal, Elena. They're just teasing. Don't be so sensitive. Sensitive. The word was a trap. If I defended myself, I was overreacting. If I stayed silent, I was admitting defeat. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. Excuse me, I need some air. I walked out of the dining room, past the bar, and out onto the street. The night air was thick and humid, but it was better than the suffocating atmosphere inside. I leaned against the brick wall of the building, my hands shaking, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. I wasn't crying. I was too angry to cry. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I pulled it out and saw a text from Marcus. Stop embarrassing me, get back inside. Not are you okay, not I'm sorry, just a command to return to my position and play my part. I stared at the message for a long time. I thought about going back in. I thought about sitting back down, smiling through the rest of the dinner, pretending that nothing had happened. I thought about all the other times I had swallowed my pride, bitten my tongue, made myself smaller so Marcus could feel bigger. And then I thought, what if I didn't? I turned off my phone. I walked to the curb and hailed a cab. I gave the driver our address, and as the city lights blurred past the window, I made a decision. I was done shrinking. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights. I walked through the dark house, our house, the house that Marcus loved to brag about at parties. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen I rarely used because Marcus preferred eating out. It was a showpiece, not a home. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I sat there in the darkness for a long time, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of 3 years of dismissal and disrespect settling on my shoulders. I thought about my father. He had passed away 2 years before I met Marcus. A heart attack that took him suddenly and left a hole in my life that never quite filled in. My father had been a real estate developer, a quiet man who built things that lasted. He had taught me about foundations, about making sure the ground was solid before you started building. Before he died, he had set up a trust for me. He said it was insurance, a safety net in case life threw me a curveball. The trust was complicated, managed by a law firm I rarely thought about. It generated income from commercial properties my father had owned, properties that were now quietly sitting in a portfolio I never accessed because I didn't need to. Marcus made enough money, or so I thought. I had never told Marcus about the trust. It wasn't a secret, exactly. It just never came up. When we got engaged, I was working and I was independent. I didn't feel the need to announce that I had a financial cushion. And as the years went on, as I became more and more dependent on Marcus, it felt safer to keep it to myself. Now, sitting in the dark, I realized my father had been right. Life had thrown me a curveball, and I had a safety net Marcus knew nothing about. I heard the front door slam open. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his silhouette backlit by the hallway light. "What the hell was that, Elena?" he demanded. "You made me look like an idiot in front of everyone." I didn't respond immediately. I just looked at him, this man I had promised to love and honor, and I felt nothing but cold clarity. "Your sister insulted me," I said. "Your mother insulted me, and you let them." "They were joking," Marcus said, his voice rising. "You're too sensitive. You always do this. You make everything about you." "Everything about me?" I stood up, my voice steady. "Marcus, I gave up my career for you. I manage every single aspect of this house so you can focus on your job. And tonight, in front of everyone who matters to you, you let them tear me apart for entertainment." "You're being dramatic," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "Look, I'm sorry if your feelings got hurt, but you need to toughen up. This is my world, Elena. These people are my colleagues, my family. If you can't handle a little teasing, maybe you're not cut out for it." Not cut out for it. As if being humiliated was a skill I needed to develop. "I want a divorce," I said. The words came out of my mouth before I had fully processed them. But once they were in the air, I knew they were true. Marcus stared at me. Then he laughed. It was a short, disbelieving laugh. "You want a divorce? Over this?" "Elena, you're not thinking clearly. Go to bed. We'll talk in the morning when you've calmed down." "I'm perfectly calm," I said. "And I'm serious. I want a divorce." His expression changed. The condescension melted away, replaced by something harder, something colder. "Fine," he said. "If that's what you want, fine. But let me make something very clear. You will get nothing. This house? My name. The cars? My name. The savings account? My money. You walked away from your job, Elena. You have no income. You have no assets. If you divorce me, you'll be starting from zero. Actually, less than zero, because you'll need to hire a lawyer, and that costs money you don't have." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "I will make sure you regret this. I will make sure everyone knows you're a gold digger who married me for my money and then tried to take me for everything when it didn't work out. I will destroy you." I looked him in the eye. "I'm not afraid of you, Marcus." He smiled, a cruel, satisfied smile. "You should be." He turned and walked out of the room. I heard him go into the guest bedroom and slam the door. I sat back down on the bed. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the rush of finally saying the words that had been building inside me for months. I didn't sleep that night. I spent the hours planning. I opened my laptop and started searching for divorce attorneys. I pulled out the folder with my trust documents and began reading through them, page by page, understanding for the first time the full scope of what my father had left me. And then I found something that made my breath catch. One of the properties listed in the trust portfolio was a commercial building at 1820 Riverside Plaza. The name sounded familiar. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Caldwell Financial Group's address, 1820 Riverside Plaza. I sat back, staring at the screen. Marcus's company rented their office space from a holding company that was owned by my trust. For the last 3 years, every month, Marcus's firm had been paying rent that eventually flowed into my accounts. He worked in a building I owned. He gave speeches about his success in an office I was paying for. I started to laugh. It was a quiet, breathless laugh that turned into something bigger, something wilder. I laughed until tears ran down my face, until my sides ached, until the absurdity of it all became the only thing I could hold on to. Marcus thought I had nothing. Marcus thought he held all the power. Marcus had no idea who he was dealing with. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. The next morning, Marcus left early. He didn't say goodbye. He just took his briefcase and walked out the door like I was a piece of furniture he had forgotten to dust. I waited until his car pulled out of the driveway. Then I called the law firm that managed my trust. I spoke to a senior partner named Mr. Callahan, a man with a deep, reassuring voice who had known my father for 30 years. "Mrs. Brennan," he said, "it's been a while. What can I do for you?" "I need to understand my assets," I said. "All of them, and I need a referral for the best divorce attorney in the city." There was a pause. Then Mr. Callahan said, "I see. Give me 2 hours." 2 hours later, I was sitting in the conference room of Callahan and Associates, looking at a full breakdown of my financial portfolio. The numbers were staggering. My father had been more successful than I realized. The trust held 6 commercial properties, all of them generating steady rental income. There were investment accounts, bonds, stocks, and a cash reserve that made my stomach drop. The total net worth of the trust was just over $4 million. "You've never accessed any of this," Mr. Callahan said, looking at me over his reading glasses. "The income has just been reinvesting itself for years." "I didn't need to," I said quietly. "I was married. I thought we were building a life together." Mr. Callahan nodded. "And now? Now I need to protect myself." He slid a business card across the table. "This is Simone Vasquez. She's a divorce attorney, and she's ruthless. If your husband thinks he's going to bully you into a bad settlement, Simone will make him regret it." I took the card. The name was embossed in elegant black letters. "Thank you." "Elena," Mr. Callahan said, his voice gentle, "your father set this up because he loved you. He wanted to make sure you would always be okay, no matter what. Don't feel guilty about using it." I wasn't feeling guilty. I was feeling powerful. I called Simone Vasquez from the parking lot. She answered on the second ring. "Vasquez, Callahan referred me." "I need a divorce attorney." Simon said. "Tell me the situation," Simone said. Her voice was brisk, efficient. I told her everything. The dinner, the insults, Marcus's threats. I told her about the trust, about the building, about the fact that Marcus had no idea what I was worth. When I finished, Simone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "This is going to be fun. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning?" "Strong." "Yes." "Very good. Bring every financial document you have. Bank statements, credit card bills, tax returns, everything." "And Elena?" "Yes?" "Don't tell your husband you've hired me. Let him think you're scrambling. Let him think he's winning." "Strong." "Okay." "One more thing," Simone said. "When he files, and he will file, don't panic. Men like Marcus always strike first because they think it gives them control. But it doesn't. It just shows us their hand." She was right. Marcus filed for divorce 4 days later. I came home from a grocery run to find an envelope taped to the front door. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage, along with a proposed settlement agreement. The settlement was insulting. Marcus was offering me $20,000, one of the older cars, and 60 days to vacate the house. No alimony, no split of assets, just a goodbye payment and a ticking clock. There was a note paperclipped to the front. "Sign this and we can both move on. Make this difficult and I'll make sure you end up with nothing. Your choice." I took the documents inside. I read through them carefully, noting every clause, every demand, every assumption Marcus had made about my position. Then I called Simone. "He filed," I said. "What's he offering?" I read her the terms. She snorted. "He's delusional. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let him think you're considering it. Don't respond yet. Let him get comfortable. Let him start planning his victory party. And then we're going to hit him with our discovery requests." "What are we asking for?" "Everything," Simone said. "Every bank account, every credit card, every investment. If he spent marital funds on anything questionable, we'll find it. And Elena?" "Yes?" "Start documenting everything. Every interaction, every text message, every threat. If he tries to intimidate you, we need proof." Marcus did try to intimidate me. Over the next 2 weeks, he became increasingly aggressive. He would come home late, slam doors, leave messes for me to clean up. He stopped contributing to the joint checking account, forcing me to dip into my own savings to buy groceries and pay utilities. He thought he was starving me out. He thought he was making me desperate. He had no idea I had millions sitting in accounts he didn't know existed. Then the text messages started. They came from Victoria, from Patricia, from Marcus's friends. All of them saying the same thing in different ways. Just sign the papers, Elena. Stop being difficult. You're embarrassing yourself. Everyone knows you're just trying to take Marcus's money. I didn't respond to any of them. I just screenshotted every message and forwarded them to Simone. They're building a harassment case for us, Simone said when I sent her the 10th message. Keep collecting. One night, Marcus came home drunk. It was almost midnight and I was in bed reading when I heard him stumbling up the stairs. He pushed open the bedroom door, leaning against the frame, his eyes unfocused. You think you're so smart, he slurred. You think you can just walk away and I'll let you? But I know you, Elena. You're weak. You're nothing without me. I set down my book. Go to sleep, Marcus. I'm not done talking, he said, staggering into the room. You need to understand something. I made you. Before me, you were just some low-level coordinator pushing papers. I gave you this life. I gave you this house. And now you think you can just take it. I'm not taking anything that isn't mine, I said calmly. He laughed. A wet, ugly sound. You don't have anything. You're broke, you're unemployed, you're nothing. I looked at him, this man I had once loved, this man who had become a stranger. If that's true, then why are you so angry? He didn't have an answer. He just turned and stumbled back out of the room. The next morning, I filed a restraining order. Simone had advised me to wait until we had enough evidence, and the drunken confrontation was the final piece. The judge granted a temporary order barring Marcus from coming within 100 feet of me. Marcus was served with the order at his office. According to Colin, who apparently couldn't resist texting me about it, Marcus threw a stapler across the room when he read it. And then Simone filed our discovery requests. We asked for 5 years of financial records. We asked for credit card statements, bank account transfers, and receipts for any expense over $500. We asked for documentation of his partnership agreement with Caldwell Financial Group, including any loans or debts secured against his equity. We were thorough, we were surgical, and we were not bluffing. Marcus's attorney, a man named Gerald Sutton, who wore expensive suits and cheaper ethics, called Simone 3 days later. What is your client trying to accomplish? Gerald demanded. These requests are invasive and unnecessary. They're standard discovery. Simone replied, if your client has nothing to hide, this should be easy. She's on a fishing expedition. Then there should be no fish to catch. Gerald hung up, but 2 days later we received a response. It was incomplete, vague, and clearly designed to avoid giving us real information. Simone filed a motion to compel. The judge agreed. Marcus was furious. He started calling me, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to threatening. Elena, please. Let's just sit down and talk about this like adults. You're making a huge mistake. You're going to regret this. I know you're scared. I know you think you need to fight me. But I'm trying to help you. Just drop this and we can work something out. I didn't call him back. I didn't engage. I just kept forwarding everything to Simone. And then we found it. Priest and doctor so clear. I'm not sure that I can make these points. I don't know, but it made sense. An account was held by something called Pinnacle Holdings Group. It looked legitimate on paper, but when Dr. Chen dug deeper, she found that Pinnacle Holdings Group had exactly one client, Marcus Brennan. It was a shell company. Marcus had created it to hide money. Strong. He's been siphoning marital funds, Dr. Chen explained during a conference call. He's been moving money out of your joint account and into this private account, probably planning to claim it as a business asset during the divorce. How much? I asked. So far, $90,000. I felt the anger rise in my chest, hot and sharp. What else? Dr. Chen pulled up another document. There are also charges to a high-end apartment complex downtown. Monthly rent, $3,500, paid from the same Shell account. Simone leaned forward. He has a second apartment? It looks that way, Dr. Chen said, and based on the billing cycles, he's had it for over a year. A second apartment, paid for with money he stole from our savings. An apartment I knew nothing about. Who's living there? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Dr. Chen pulled up a utility bill. The name on the account was Brooke Sinclair. I didn't know who Brooke Sinclair was, but I was about to find out. Simone hired a private investigator named Leo Quan. Leo was a former police detective with a reputation for being thorough and discreet. Within 48 hours, he had a full profile on Brooke Sinclair. She was 26 years old, worked as a marketing associate at Caldwell Financial Group, and had been having an affair with Marcus for at least 2 years. Leo provided photos. Marcus and Brooke leaving the apartment together. Marcus and Brooke at a restaurant I recognized, the same restaurant where he told me he was having a business dinner. Marcus and Brooke kissing in the parking garage of his office building. I stared at the photos spread across Simone's desk. I should have been devastated. I should have been heartbroken. Instead, I felt vindicated. This changes everything, Simone said. We now have proof of adultery and financial misconduct. We can go after him for dissipation of marital assets. We can argue that he's been using joint funds to support his affair, which means he owes you reimbursement. How much? Conservatively, $150,000. But we'll ask for more. I looked at the photos again. I want him to know I know. Not yet, Simone said. We're going to save this for mediation. We're going to let him walk in there thinking he has the upper hand. And then we're going to show him exactly what we have. When? 2 weeks. I've already scheduled it. I left Simone's office feeling lighter than I had in months. Marcus thought he was playing chess. He thought he was 10 moves ahead. He didn't realize I'd already flipped the board. The night before the mediation, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. I thought about what Marcus would say, how he would react, whether he would try to negotiate or try to intimidate. I thought about the woman I had been 3 months ago, the woman who had sat silently at that dinner table while Marcus's family tore her apart. That woman felt like a stranger to me now. I had spent so much of my marriage making myself smaller, quieter, less. I had convinced myself that being a good wife meant being supportive, which somehow translated into being invisible. I had let Marcus define my worth by his standards, and his standards were that I had none. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I had found my voice. I had found my power. And tomorrow, I was going to use both. I got out of bed and went downstairs. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Marcus used to lecture me about budgets while secretly funneling thousands of dollars to his mistress. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I know what you're planning. Drop it or I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I stared at the message. It was clearly from Marcus, using a burner phone to try to scare me. I took a screenshot and sent it to Simone with a single word: evidence. Then I blocked the number and finished my tea. I wasn't scared. I was ready. The mediation was scheduled for 9 in the morning at a neutral office downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a charcoal gray suit that had been hanging in the back of my closet since my Langston architecture days. It still fit perfectly, and when I looked at myself in the mirror that morning, I saw someone I had almost forgotten. I saw Elena Martinez, the project coordinator who had managed million-dollar construction timelines. I saw the woman who didn't need anyone's permission to exist. Simone was already waiting in the lobby when I arrived. She was wearing a burgundy suit that screamed competence and danger in equal measure. She looked me up and down and nodded approvingly. "You look like you mean business," she said. "I do." We took the elevator to the 5th floor. The mediation firm's office was all glass and chrome, designed to be intimidating in its sterility. The receptionist led us to a conference room with a view of the city skyline. A long table dominated the space, with chairs arranged on either side like opposing armies. I sat down and placed my leather portfolio on the table in front of me. Inside were copies of every document we would need, organized with color-coded tabs. Simone sat beside me, opening her laptop with the casual confidence of someone who had done this 1,000 times. We waited. Marcus arrived 10 minutes late. He walked in with Gerald Sutton, his attorney, both of them carrying briefcases and wearing expressions of barely concealed annoyance. Marcus was wearing his power suit, the navy one he reserved for important client meetings. His hair was perfectly styled. His cologne filled the room before he did. He didn't look at me when he entered. He looked past me, through me, as if I were simply part of the furniture. "Gentlemen," Simone said, her voice cool and professional. "Thank you for joining us." Gerald grunted something that might have been a greeting and took his seat across from us. Marcus sat beside him, finally allowing his gaze to settle on me. His eyes went cold, calculating. He was trying to intimidate me with silence. I met his stare and didn't blink. The mediator entered a moment later. Her name was Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun and glasses that magnified her sharp, assessing eyes. She had a reputation for being fair but firm, someone who didn't tolerate games. "Good morning," Dr. Okonkwo said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "We're here to discuss the dissolution of marriage between Marcus Brennan and Elena Martinez. My role is to facilitate a conversation that leads to an equitable settlement for both parties. Before we begin negotiations, I need to confirm that both parties have submitted complete and accurate financial disclosures." Gerald leaned back in his chair, his hands folded over his stomach. "My client has provided a full accounting of his assets and liabilities. Everything is in order." Dr. Okonkwo turned to Simone. "And Mrs. Martinez?" Simone reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope. It was sealed with a red evidence sticker, the kind used for legal documents that needed to remain tamper-proof. She placed it carefully on the table. "Mrs. Martinez has prepared a comprehensive disclosure," Simone said, "current as of this morning." Marcus glanced at the envelope, then at Gerald. He smirked. This should be quick. Gerald opened his own folder and slid a document across the table toward Dr. Okonkwo. "This is the settlement we're proposing. $20,000, the 2019 sedan, and 60 days to vacate the marital residence. Given that Mrs. Martinez has no income and no documented assets, we believe this is more than fair." Dr. Okonkwo picked up the document and scanned it. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "No alimony?" "No alimony," Gerald confirmed. "The marriage was short-term. Mrs. Martinez chose to leave her employment. My client should not be penalized for her choices." "I see," Dr. Okonkwo said. She set the document down and turned to me. "Mrs. Martinez, do you find these terms acceptable?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch out, let Marcus start to relax, let him think I was intimidated. Then I spoke, my voice clear and steady. "No, I don't." Marcus sighed dramatically. "Of course not. Elena, let's be realistic here. You have no leverage. You're unemployed. You have no savings that we're aware of. I'm offering you a generous settlement to help you get back on your feet. If you refuse, we'll go to court, and you'll end up with even less." "Is that a threat?" I asked. "It's a fact," Marcus said, his tone condescending. "I'm trying to help you, but if you want to be stubborn, that's your choice." Dr. Okonkwo held up a hand. "Brennan, let's keep this professional. Mrs. Martinez has the right to contest your offer." She turned to Simone. "Does your client have a counterproposal?" "Not yet," Simone said. "But before we discuss settlement terms, we need to address the financial disclosures. Specifically, we need Mr. Brennan to explain several irregularities we've discovered. Gerald frowned. What irregularities? Simone opened her laptop and turned it so everyone could see the screen. It displayed a spreadsheet with highlighted rows. Over the past 18 months, Mr. Brennan has transferred $90,000 from the joint marital savings account into a private account held by a shell company called Pinnacle Holdings Group. These transfers were not disclosed to Mrs. Martinez. Marcus's smirk faded slightly. That's a business account. It has nothing to do with the marriage, Simone countered. Except that the funds came from marital assets, Simone countered, which makes them subject to division. But that's not all. She clicked to the next slide. Pinnacle Holdings Group has also been paying monthly rent on an apartment at 742 Waterford Towers, $3,500 per month for the past 14 months. That's $49,000 in rent paid with marital funds. The room went very quiet. Marcus's jaw tightened. I needed an office space for client meetings. An office space with a king-sized bed and a walk-in closet? Simone asked. She clicked again, and a floor plan of the apartment appeared on screen. According to the lease, this is a one-bedroom luxury apartment, not an office. Gerald leaned over and whispered something to Marcus. Marcus shook his head, his face reddening. Who lives in this apartment, Mr. Brennan? Dr. Okonkwo asked, her tone sharpening. No one, Marcus said quickly. It's for work. Sometimes I need a quiet place to prepare for presentations. Simone reached into her folder and pulled out a stack of photos. She slid them across the table. These were taken over the past 3 weeks by a licensed investigator. They show you entering and leaving the apartment with a woman named Brooke Sinclair. They show you kissing her in the parking garage. They show her using a key to enter the apartment when you're not there. I watched Marcus's face as he looked at the photos. I watched the color drain from his cheeks, watched his mouth open and close like a fish gasping for air. So this is entrapment, Gerald said, but his voice lacked conviction. You had my client followed? We conducted a legal investigation into the use of marital funds, Simone said, and we discovered that Mr. Brennan has been using those funds to support an extramarital affair. That's dissipation of assets, which means he owes Mrs. Martinez reimbursement for every dollar he spent on his mistress. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You hired some creep to stalk me? We hired a professional investigator to follow the money, I said, speaking for the first time since the photos came out. My voice was calm, almost detached. The stalking was just a bonus. Marcus turned to me, his eyes blazing with anger. You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you've won? Elena, you're still the same pathetic, unemployed housewife you were 3 months ago. These little games won't change that. Mr. Brennan, Dr. Okonkwo said sharply, I will not tolerate verbal abuse in this mediation. You will speak respectfully, or we will end this session. Marcus sat back, breathing hard, his hands clenched into fists on the table. Dr. Okonkwo turned to me. Mrs. Martinez, I need to review your financial disclosure now. May I? I nodded. Simone reached across the table and handed the sealed envelope to Dr. Okonkwo. The mediator broke the seal and pulled out the documents inside. She adjusted her glasses and began to read. I watched her face. I watched as her expression shifted from neutral professionalism to surprise to something that looked almost like alarm. She flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning the numbers, her lips pressing into a thin line. She looked up at me. Mrs. Martinez, is this accurate? Yes, I said. She looked back down at the papers, then at Marcus. Mr. Brennan, were you aware of your wife's financial holdings? Marcus frowned. What financial holdings? She doesn't have any. Dr. Okonkwo set the papers down carefully, as if they might explode. According to this disclosure, Mrs. Martinez is the beneficiary of a trust valued at approximately $4.2 million. The trust holds commercial real estate properties that generate an annual income of roughly $260,000. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus stared at Dr. Okonkwo, then he stared at me. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "That's impossible," Gerald finally said. "We would have known about a trust. She would have disclosed it." "She's disclosing it now," Simone said, "as required by law. The trust was established by Mrs. Martinez's late father and has been managed by Callahan and Associates for the past 12 years. Mrs. Martinez never accessed the principal or the income during the marriage because she didn't need to. She was under the impression they were building a life together." Marcus found his voice. It came out strangled, disbelieving. $4 million? You've had $4 million this whole time? "I've had a trust," I said. "I never hid it. You never asked." "You let me believe you had nothing," Marcus said, his voice rising. "You let me think I was supporting you." "You were supporting me," I said. "Or you would have been if you hadn't been spending our money on Brooke." Gerald was flipping through the disclosure documents, his face growing paler with each page. "This can't be right. This building here, 1820 Riverside Plaza, that's where Caldwell Financial Group is located." "Yes," I said. Gerald looked up at Marcus, then at me. "You own the building where Marcus works?" "My trust does," I clarified, "through a holding company. Has for about 15 years, since before Marcus and I even met." Marcus pushed his chair back from the table, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. He stood up, his hands shaking. "This is a setup. This is all fake. You're making this up to try to get more money out of me." "Sit down, Mr. Brennan," Dr. Okonkwo said. "No," Marcus said. He pointed at me, his finger trembling. "You're a liar. You've been lying to me for years." "I never lied," I said, standing up to face him. "I just never corrected your assumptions. You assumed I was weak because I didn't work. You assumed I was poor because I didn't brag. You assumed I needed you because I loved you. Those were your mistakes, Marcus, not mine." "You manipulated me," he said. "I married you," I corrected. "I loved you. I gave up my career because you asked me to. I managed your home, your schedule, your entire life so you could focus on your job. A job you performed in a building I own. And you repaid me by stealing from our savings to buy an apartment for your girlfriend. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you." Marcus sank back into his chair. He looked like a man who had just realized he was standing on quicksand. Gerald was whispering urgently in his ear. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was staring at the document spread across the table, at the proof of my wealth, at the evidence of his own stupidity. Dr. Okonkwo cleared her throat. "Given this new information, I think we need to reconsider the settlement terms. Mrs. Martinez is clearly not the dependent spouse Mr. Brennan claims she was. In fact, based on these numbers, she may be the higher earning party in this marriage." "This changes everything," Gerald muttered. "Yes, it does," Simone agreed. She pulled out another document. "Which brings me to our counterproposal. Given the dissipation of marital assets, the adultery, and the emotional distress caused by Mr. Brennan's actions, we are seeking the following. First, full reimbursement of the $90,000 transferred to Pinnacle Holdings Group, plus the $49,000 spent on the apartment. That's $139,000. Gerald started to object, but Simone held up a hand. Second, Mrs. Martinez will retain the marital residence. Mr. Brennan will vacate within 30 days. That's my house, Marcus said. Actually, Simone said, pulling out yet another document, according to the deed, the house was purchased with funds from a down payment gift provided by Mrs. Martinez's father, which means it's technically a premarital asset. We're willing to buy out your interest in the mortgage payments you've made, but the house stays with Mrs. Martinez. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. Third, Simone continued, Mrs. Martinez is seeking full custody of any future shared assets, but since there are no children, that's not applicable here. However, she is requesting that Mr. Brennan cover all legal fees for both parties. Absolutely not, Gerald said. Then we go to court, Simone said with a shrug, where all of this becomes public record, including the photos of Mr. Brennan and Miss Sinclair, including the financial records showing his shell company, including the fact that he's been lying to his partners about his financial situation. Marcus's head snapped up. What do you mean, lying to my partners? Simone smiled. It was not a kind smile. Dr. Chen found some interesting information about your partnership agreement. You pledged your equity as collateral for a personal loan of $200,000. According to the partnership bylaws, any loan over $100,000 secured by equity requires board approval. Did you get board approval, Mr. Brennan? Marcus didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. I didn't think so, Simone said, which means you're in breach of your partnership agreement. If your partners find out, and they will find out if this goes to court, you could lose your position at the firm. Gerald was frantically writing notes. He looked up at Simone. What exactly are you asking for? What I stated, Simone said. Reimbursement for dissipated funds, the house, and legal fees. In exchange, we'll agree to a confidential settlement. Nothing goes to court. Nothing becomes public. Brennan's partners never find out about the loan, and he gets to walk away with his career intact. That's extortion, Marcus said. That's negotiation, Simone corrected. You tried to lowball my client with a $20,000 settlement when she's worth millions. You tried to intimidate her. You threatened her. And all we're asking for is what's fair. You pay back what you stole. You leave her the house her father helped her buy, and you cover the legal costs of cleaning up your mess. Dr. Okonkwo looked at Marcus and Gerald. I think you should seriously consider this offer. If this goes to trial, the outcome could be much worse. Gerald pulled Marcus aside. They spoke in hushed, urgent tones for several minutes. I could see Marcus shaking his head, gesturing angrily, but Gerald kept talking, kept pressing. Finally, Marcus slumped, his shoulders sagging in defeat. Gerald returned to the table. We need time to discuss this with my client. Can we reconvene tomorrow? No, Simone said. The offer expires when we leave this room. You accept now, or we file in court this afternoon. Gerald looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at me. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes that might have been regret, or maybe just wounded pride. Fine, Marcus said, his voice hollow. I'll sign. Dr. Okonkwo pulled out a fresh settlement agreement. Gerald reviewed it line by line, making small notations, but there was no real fight left in them. Within an hour, the new terms were written up and printed. Marcus signed his name on the bottom line. His hand shook slightly, and the signature was barely legible. Then it was my turn. I picked up the pen and I signed Elena Martinez. Not Elena Brennan, not Mrs. Marcus Brennan, just Elena Martinez, the woman I had always been. Dr. Okonkwo witnessed both signatures and stamped the document. This settlement is now binding. Congratulations, you're officially divorced. There was no celebration, no sense of victory, just a quiet, heavy finality. Marcus stood up and walked out of the room without looking at me. Gerald gathered his papers and followed, muttering something about filing the paperwork with the court. When they were gone, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. You did it, Simone said, closing her laptop. You won. I survived, I corrected. There's a difference. Simone studied me for a moment, then nodded. Yes, there is. I left the mediation office and stepped out into the afternoon sunlight. The city was loud and bright and indifferent to my personal drama. People rushed past me on the sidewalk, focused on their own lives, their own problems. I pulled out my phone and called Mr. Callahan. It's done, I said when he answered. Good, he said. Your father would be proud of you, Elena. I hope so. I hung up and started walking. I didn't have anywhere specific to go. I just needed to move, to feel the ground solid beneath my feet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life." It was from Marcus. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed out a reply. "No, Marcus. I just stopped letting you destroy mine." I hit send and then blocked the number. I kept walking. The sun was warm on my face, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. 3 months later, I was sitting in a new office. It wasn't at Langston Architecture. It was my own space, a small suite in a renovated building downtown that I'd rented with my trust income. The sign on the door read Martinez Consulting Group. I had started slowly, reaching out to old contacts, letting people know I was back in the industry. The response had been overwhelming. Apparently, my reputation as a project coordinator had survived my 3-year absence. Within weeks, I had 3 clients and a waiting list. I hired an assistant, a sharp young woman named Priya, who reminded me of myself 10 years ago. Hungry, ambitious, and unafraid to speak her mind. The house was mine now, legally and emotionally. I had repainted the bedroom, donated half of the furniture, and turned Marcus's home office into a library. I filled it with books I'd always wanted to read, but never had time for. I joined a book club. I started taking salsa lessons on Thursday nights. I reconnected with friends I lost touch with during my marriage, and I discovered that I actually liked spending time alone. One Saturday afternoon, I was at a coffee shop near my office, working on a project proposal, when someone sat down at the table next to mine. "Elena?" I looked up. It was Daniel Ortega, a former colleague from Langston Architecture. We'd worked together on a hospital renovation project years ago. He'd been a junior architect then, smart and funny and engaged to someone else. "Daniel," I said, smiling. "How are you?" "I'm good," he said. "I heard you started your own firm. That's amazing." "Thank you. What about you?" "I'm a senior architect at Meridian Design now. We're actually looking for a good project consultant for a commercial development. Any chance you'd be interested?" We spent the next hour talking about work, about life, about the strange paths that lead us away from and back to ourselves. When we finally said goodbye, he handed me his card. "Call me," he said, "about the project. Or, if you ever want to grab coffee." I took the card. "I will," and I meant it. That night, I sat in my library, surrounded by books and silence and the life I'd built from the ashes of my marriage. I thought about the woman I'd been at that dinner 3 months ago, the woman who had sat silently while her husband's family mocked her. She felt like someone from another lifetime, strongly. I thought about Marcus. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Brooke had left him. Apparently, being with a man who was in debt and under investigation by his own firm wasn't as glamorous as she'd thought. Marcus had moved into a studio apartment and was driving a used car. His partners had found out about the unauthorized loan and had forced him to take a demotion. I didn't take pleasure in his downfall. I just felt nothing. He was a stranger who had once occupied space in my life, and now he was gone. I opened my laptop and checked my email. There was a message from Priya with the subject line, "New Client Inquiry." I clicked it open. It was from a developer interested in hiring us for a mixed-use project downtown. The budget was substantial. The timeline was aggressive. It was exactly the kind of challenge I'd been craving. I smiled and started typing a response. "My name is Elena Martinez. I am 31 years old, and I own a consulting firm, 6 commercial properties, and a life that belongs entirely to me. I have been dismissed, underestimated, and betrayed, and I have survived all of it. Not because I was lucky, not because someone rescued me, but because I rescued myself. I learned that silence is not weakness, that patience is not passivity, that loving someone does not mean losing yourself. I learned that the most dangerous thing you can do to a woman is assume she has nothing to lose. Because once she realizes her own worth, once she understands her own power, there is no limit to what she can build. Marcus thought I was a receipt he could crumple up and throw away. He thought I was nothing without him. He was wrong. I was never nothing. I was just waiting for the right moment to show him exactly who I was. And when that moment came, I didn't hesitate. I didn't apologize. I didn't make myself small. I stood tall. I spoke my truth, and I took back everything he tried to steal from me. My dignity, my future, my life. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, if you're in a relationship where you've been made to feel small, where your contributions are dismissed, where your voice is silenced, I want you to know something. You are not alone. You are not weak. You are not nothing. You are a woman with a voice, with power, with worth that no one else can define. And when you're ready, when you've had enough of being treated like you don't matter, you will find the strength to stand up. You will find the courage to fight back. You will find the resources you need to build a new life. It won't be easy. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you're scared, when you want to give up. But I promise you, on the other side of that fear is freedom. On the other side of that pain is power. On the other side of that struggle is a life that belongs entirely to you. I know because I lived it, I survived it, and I came out stronger than I ever thought possible. So if you're listening to this from a place of pain, from a marriage or relationship that's breaking you down, from a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore, hear me when I say this. You can leave. You can rebuild. You can thrive. And you don't need anyone's permission to do it. Not your partner's, not your family's, not society's. You just need your own. So take a deep breath, look at your life honestly, and ask yourself, is this what I want? Is this who I am? Or is this just who someone else decided I should be? And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, if it makes you angry, if it makes you realize you've been living someone else's story, then it's time to write your own. Start small if you need to. Open a bank account in your own name. Call a lawyer. Talk to a friend. Document everything. Build your escape route quietly, carefully, strategically. And when the moment comes, when you're ready to walk away, do it with your head held high. Do it knowing that you deserve better. Do it knowing that you are worth more than how you've been treated. Do it knowing that the best revenge is not anger or bitterness. The best revenge is building a life so full, so rich, so completely yours that the person who tried to diminish you becomes nothing more than a footnote in your story. My name is Elena Martinez. I am 31 years old, and I am finally free. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this journey. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And you matter. Never forget that. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and never let anyone make you feel small. This is Elena Martinez, reminding you that the most powerful weapon you have is knowing your own worth. And once you know it, no one can ever take it away from you.